Hey everyone, Mike here. I'm going to hopefully quickly tie one of these streapers up that I use to chase smallmouth bass. It has done me very well over the years that I've been using it. First thing I do, this is a Gamakatsu B10S size 4 hook, okay? And then I use a soldering wire. It's just regular old thin soldering wire. We will also use a piece of plugged foam. This is actually a 2-pound EVA foam. It floats like a cork. We're going to use printed eyes. I'm going to do a little coloring with Sharpies. I'm going to use deer hair off this tail of the deer. I'm going to use this minnow wrap. And I think that's pretty much got it. So I'm going to go ahead and throw some of this on here. I'm going to load up, let me get this over to this front here. I don't think it's in the camera now. So let's go ahead and load up the hook with a little bit of this this lead solder, or whatever material it's made out of. And then we'll run it back to just about where the bend of the hook is there. Then we'll go ahead and throw our thread on and just capture that so it doesn't slide around on us, okay? So bring it back here and then just grab it like that. And what that'll do is it will help that hook keep that fly topside all the time. You don't have to use a whip finisher for this, but you want to get that off of there, because what I'm going to want to do is use my UV finish and encapsulate, get anything below there away so that so it doesn't drip down on it. And I use a craft brush to kind of even it out all the way around. Looks like that craft brush had a little bit of red in it for some reason. That's okay. Bass like red. So we'll go ahead and cure this up real quick. Okay, so the next step we're going to put, well, we got to put our thread back on. And come up to about right where we put that piece of lead in. We're going to grab a little bit of this, the hair, the white hair off the back of this, off the tail of this deer tail. That's about all you need there. I don't really line this up. I leave it just natural, but I will grab it about 3/4 or more of the way back and grab it and hold it really nice and tight to pull out any of the short hair. Just like that. And then we'll go ahead and tie that in. I'll tie it in about 1.5 times the length of my hook there. These are soft wraps that I just did so that I can manipulate the deer hair around that little lead ball that we put on the right in the front of the bend of the hook, and then we'll cinch it down. And then come forward with some lighter wraps, and then grab the deer hair like so. And then I'm going to pull it out at about a 45 and cut it on a 45, so that I have a really nice taper right there, so that when I bring my thread wraps around, lightly bring it around, I'm not cranking at all. I'm just letting the weight of the thread come around. Captures all of that, and then you can come back to the front, back to the back section right here again. So once you have it like that, you're ready to put on your minnow wrap. I like to try and have the minnow wrap where I tie it with the material facing this direction on the hook as I tie it in, away from the hook. I don't do it this way. I like to do it this way, and you'll see why here in a second. Maybe you have better luck doing it the other way, but this is just the way I do it. Because what it does is it grabs that material and it leaves it so that it's facing towards the back as you wrap it, just like that. Now you'll want to kind of keep your wraps tight. Kind of pull the fibers back so that you don't tie on top of fibers and trap them. You want this stuff to flow really nice and evenly back here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get this all the way up to the front, and then lock it in. I'll put a couple of 2 wraps on the top of the thread, and then pull back on all this right here, and then grab my fingers and kind of pull it all back, and then lock it all in. I am putting a little bit of pressure on the thread right here. Okay. And then we'll go ahead and get down there as close as we can and clip that off of there. Just like that. And what I like to do is use super glue. Okay, this is a flexible super glue, and I like to take it and load up my line. This is a 3/0 braided type thread or twisted thread. It's not flat. You don't need it when you're tying large flies. You don't need a flat thread when you're tying large flies. In fact, you could really get away with using sewing thread with flies this large. And then just wrap that on there, and then what's going to happen with that super glue when you cinch down on this right here is that tightness is going to take that thread and the super glue, and it's going to lock all of that right into place there. So that is not going anywhere. I forgot to say we are going to use a piece of 030 MIG welding wire for the back, or for the shank of this fly, and I'm going to use 2 different one-step loopers. I've got a 1.5 and a 3.0, and you'll see why here in a second. I'm going to go ahead and I cut the cutters off of this, the automatic cutter, because I don't want it to cut, and I want to use this as a length, and I want to leave it as a one-step type deal where I put the thread in like so, or your thread, the wire in just like so, and then I'll use some flat nose pliers, start the bend, and then capture the wire so that it stays. Let's get it in the picture here. So that it stays flat, and then do the pinch, and then I'll kind of give it a little bit of twist, and there you go. You got yourself a really nice loop there. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to measure where I want the eye of the fly to be. So I'll mark it with a little bit of red there. And we'll go ahead and do that piece, but this time I'm going to use the 1.5 looper. Now, what I do want to make sure I do before I put that loop in is I want to turn this loop so that it's going to be 90 degrees from this loop. And you'll see why here in a second. So I grab that, grab my flat nose, and then you got yourself a nice eye there and a nice loop in the back for the hook for when you tie it in. Then you just take a pair of side cutters and cut it off towards the back there. Alright, so now what you're going to want to do is I'm going to put this back on the hook. I want my hook to be point up, so I'm going to put the hook point up, and this is one of the advantages of having a rotary vise. And then I'm going to use the larger of the two loops. See, there's that one that's going to grab the hook because it's a straight hook and the eye is this way, so it's going to grab it so it rides nice and even there, and then you're going to have the hook coming out as if you had your straight hook and you have a place to tie your line in. So one of the things that I want to make sure that I do is come up. Okay, so I'm going to want to take this and thread it through the top of the hook. Okay, and then bring it around, and then we're going to flip it over like this. This might be better here. Whoops, right here. And tie that in. So now what we're going to want to do, close this gap right here. I'll just put a couple of wraps around it just like that, and then pull, and then just wrap it around, and kind of just put a little bit of a base build up in the back here for the material that is going to be tied in after we get the so same thing up in the front, just grab it with a couple of 2 or 3 loose pieces there, wraps, grab it, pull it in, and then wrap it up. Okay, try and stay away from these tips of the cut points, because those side cutters put a pretty sharp edge on it. You don't want to get your thread around there, you'll find yourself having to tie in at a new point. So anyway, go ahead and lock in your chenille. This chenille, the only thing that it does is it creates a locking base for when you throw your foam on, and we'll show you that here in a minute. And grab that and lock it all down. Come to the back, cut off the chenille, and then now the next step will be to put the hole in your foam so that it will ride. You want that foam, here I've got one done. You want this eye here to be towards the bottom of this foam, so that if it hits the water like this, the weight of this hook is going to pull it around so that it rides like this in the water, and it's going to cause the hook to be facing hook up, point up. And the reason why you want to do that is on a bass, the hardest part of the bass's mouth is up on top, and when you set a hook on top, you're going to, when you get a misstrike, a lot of times it's because the fish is grabbing on the bottom side of this hook here, and it's got cartilage and bone in the lower jaw, but most of the hard and real firm stuff is in the upper jaw, and that's where the best hook set is when you get them up on the top, not down on the bottom. And so when it hits the water, you want it, when it's upside down, you want it to hit the water, and then it'll automatically just spin over where you want it to be. So to do that, we want to get that hole to run across the bottom there. And the way I do that is I use this bodkin and a combination square like this right here, and I just pull it out of this square, and I use this track here so that when I put my bodkin on, that track goes perfectly so that it will put the hole on this very uniformly across the bottom and go in at the same depth on the bottom on the front as it comes out on the bottom in the back. And the way I do that is I simply heat up the tip of the bodkin, and I'll heat it up until it turns red, just like that. And then I'll make sure that the foam is laying straight on that track, and then run the bodkin through, and now you've got yourself a perfect hole that runs across the bottom there on the back side, on the back side and on the front side, just like that. Okay, and then you might do a test run before you do anything. Get this thread more to the back here. Just run it and twist it, and what's going on here is the inside diameter of the hole on your foam is causing that small diameter to clamp down onto your chenille, and that will help the super glue set up nicely and hold it in place, and it will never come out. I've always had the problem when you slit them down through there, and of course if you do them right, the glue will hold up. But if you slit them, that's the foam could have a tendency to, once it gets started, it'll just rip down through there like a zipper, and your hook comes out and you lose your foam. Maybe it hasn't happened to you, maybe it has, I don't know. But if you do it this way, that'll never happen. So what I'm going to want to do to get that to lock in is I'm going to put it on top, put a pretty good little buttering up of this chenille here, and I'll have a piece of paper towel, and then just load it up with the super glue, and then I'll get the foam on and twist it around and grab the back here, any of the excess. Then I want to make sure that it's straight up and down like so, and again make sure I get all that excess off of there, because if I don't, that stuff's going to get on my fingers. Okay, so then just once you get it straight up and down, then you lock it into place by just holding it. Super glue sets up under pressure. If you ever notice, you can put a little bead of glue on a glass table, or on anything for that matter, and it'll stay liquefied until you put it under pressure. As soon as you put it under pressure, the glue does its job and it starts to set up. So I'm not going to hold it really long here. I don't have to. Once I have it held and it's going to hold into place, it won't get knocked around as I finish up my tie here. So now what I want to do is stick on, like we did the minnow wrap here, I want to throw some more minnow wrap on the back side to kind of cover up the loop to the hook. So we'll go ahead and tie that in. And again, if you look here, you'll see that I have the fibers facing in that direction. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and grab it and turn it over like so, and then just start running it back towards the front. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap this thing all the way up to the foam, and then wrap it on top of itself a couple of times, an extra time or two, and then capture it and then capture it again. Now, when I say capture it, I'm grabbing the thread and wrapping it around that fabric that holds these materials in place. So there's that. Okay, so now what I'm going to want to do is, oops, not yet, big boy, getting ahead of yourself. So what I want to do now is put on this little bit of hackle here to kind of give it, you know, a nice dressing transfer from the foam to the back here, which will, it's going to cause these fibers going to stick out more straight than the minnow wrap will. So let's go ahead and cut this into a tag, little tag in here, just like that, right there. And I'm going to tie that tag in on the top to capture it on the top. Oops, that is not enough. Right. Let's do it this way. So I'm going to have that tag right there, and I'm going to grab it right at the neck of that tab and pull it down into place. Put a couple wraps on top of it, and then I'm ready to go ahead and put this hackle all the way around. Just like that. You can really load this up here if you want to. I do. Okay, and then go ahead and cut that bad boy off there. And now grab the fibers underneath if you want to capture them and have them more towards the front there. Okay, so now what we're going to want to do is again take our super glue. Let's go here. Take the super glue and load that up. Put a couple wraps on it. And then I'm going to use my giant whip finisher to get way back there. If I try to use this one here, it's going to get all tangled up in there. This one here will prevent that. And then that super glue, when I cinch down on everything there, that super glue will set up, and this baby's ready to go. Now, you can do this if you want to, collar them up, but I can tell you, I've taken them out just plain white, just like this, and they do just as well as anything collared up and with eyes on it and everything. This is all you need to do. That's the Streapper. That's how you build it. Then you can dress it however you want to, in whatever colors you want to, whether you do a Copic pen airbrushing, whether you just use the marker itself to color it up, however you want to do it. It's pretty simple. That's a very simple tie, and I'm telling you, it's very, very effective for the smallmouth bass. Till next video, we'll catch you later.